Millionaire made his pregnant wife sign divorce papers, then proposed to his mistress. The world loves a scandal, and few scandals can outshine the dazzling fall from grace of a proud millionaire who once had it all: power, wealth, and the illusion of a perfect marriage. This is the story of Andrew Wellington, heir to a legendary fortune, whose charismatic smile masked a heart consumed by ambition and betrayal. When his wife Jennifer Collins found herself pregnant, she believed it was their moment of bliss, only to be blindsided when Andrew presented her with divorce papers. But the drama doesn't end there. Unbeknownst to everyone, Andrew's new mistress was waiting in the shadows for a ring and a proposal that would set this tumultuous saga ablaze. Andrew Wellington was, by all public accounts, the epitome of success. Tall, with piercing blue eyes and neatly combed dark hair, he exuded confidence from every pore. People whispered that he was born in a suit, impeccably tailored, no wrinkles allowed, even as an infant. Coming from one of the oldest moneyed families in Manhattan, Andrew wielded influence in the city's real estate and venture capital circles like a scepter. Wherever he went, cameras flashed, reporters swarmed, and charity galas vied for his presence. Jennifer Collins couldn't have been more different from Andrew's privileged circle. Growing up in a middle-class home in upstate New York, she knew the value of every dollar. Her parents, Maria and Stephen Collins, ran a modest but beloved bakery, where Jennifer spent her teenage afternoons kneading dough, icing cakes, and listening to customers confide their everyday hopes and woes. She was intelligent, warm-hearted, and unguardedly trusting. Perhaps that was what Andrew found so refreshing when they first met at a friend's gallery opening in Soho. Surrounded by superficial socialites, Jennifer was a breath of authenticity, wearing a simple floral sundress and sandals, while everyone else flaunted name-brand suits and glittering designer gowns. From that first encounter, their courtship was swift and intense. Andrew invited Jennifer to exclusive events, introduced her to philanthropic committees, and took her on spontaneous weekend getaways aboard his family's yacht. Their wedding, though lavish, showcased the bridging of two distinct worlds: hers, grounded in familial love and sincerity; his, drowned in wealth, deals, and lofty expectations. Jennifer, starry-eyed, believed she'd found her fairy tale prince. She didn't understand that the glitz and glamour she was stepping into could quickly turn cold and isolating. The first year of their marriage still felt like a dream. Andrew indulged in heartfelt gestures, late-night dinners, dance lessons, front-row seats at Broadway shows. Yet bit by bit, a distance crept in. He began working longer hours, attending mysterious meetings behind locked doors. He sometimes returned home in the early hours of the morning, smelling of fine whiskey and expensive perfume that wasn't Jennifer's. Though her intuition quietly sounded an alarm, she convinced herself it was stress, business, or just the glimmering remnants of some high society party where wives were unwelcome. She believed him when he said he was only networking. She believed him because she loved him. Then came the day Jennifer realized she was pregnant. She was overjoyed, convinced this was the miracle that would rekindle their love. Andrew's initial reaction was pleasant enough. He forced a bright smile and wrapped her in a nervous embrace. But Jennifer sensed he was a million miles away, as though his mind was already calculating how a baby would factor into his carefully manicured empire. Still, she clung to hope. She filled her days with prenatal appointments, reading parenting books, and planning a nursery in their lavish penthouse. On weekends, she pleaded with Andrew to attend childbirth classes. He always agreed, only to cancel last minute with an excuse about a sudden business trip or pressing phone call. Nights became lonelier, with Jennifer falling asleep in a half-empty bed. It was during this fragile time that Jennifer first heard the name Isabella Moretti. A slip of the tongue by Andrew's personal assistant, an errant text message on his phone, a rumour whispered among the staff. She was, by all accounts, a stunning and enigmatic figure. Born to a wealthy Italian family, and known on the social circuit for her sultry presence and cunning intellect, Isabella had a reputation that drew envy from women and admiration from men. Jennifer tried to brush it off as more mindless gossip, something high society thrived upon. But deep inside, anxiety gnawed at her. It wasn't just gossip. It felt like the truth. Weeks later, Andrew returned from a trip to Capri, supposedly a real estate conference, acting colder than ever. He avoided Jennifer's gaze, declined to join her for dinner, and spent hours locked in his study. The silent tension mounted until Jennifer decided to address it. She walked into the study one evening, her hands trembling over the slight bulge forming in her abdomen, and pleaded, "Andrew, talk to me. Is there something going on, something you need to tell me?" He looked up from his laptop, face impassive, and simply shook his head. "I'm just busy, Jennifer." That was all he said. No reassurance, no gentle touch, nothing. Days later, Jennifer discovered the damning text messages on Andrew's phone. She had gone into his study to grab his phone charger, a benign enough act, but the device lit up with a text from Isabella, "Miss you already, amor." Tonight was unforgettable. Another message from the day before read, "Can't wait for the day we can be together without secrets." Jennifer's knees buckled. She sank into a chair, her heart racing, breath ragged. The truth was no longer a shadowy doubt. It was real, and it shattered her entire world in an instant. In the days that followed, Jennifer tried to hide the painful knowledge from her husband, waiting for the right moment to confront him. She was terrified of losing him, of a scandal, of bringing a child into a home that might soon split apart. Meanwhile, Andrew's distant behavior verged on cruelty. He spent more time with Harriet Caldwell, the family's lawyer, than he did with Jennifer. Late into the night, Jennifer heard him on phone calls, his voice low and urgent. Each time she tiptoed down the hall, she caught snippets of Andrew mentioning documents, discretion, and financial arrangements. A fearful suspicion bloomed inside her. Andrew was drafting divorce papers. On a Wednesday morning, Jennifer drove to her obstetrician appointment alone. Dr. Joseph Matthews, a well-respected physician at Mount Sinai Hospital, greeted her kindly. He had once been the family doctor for the Wellingtons. Yet as Jennifer sat on the exam table for her ultrasound, she couldn't help but notice Dr. Matthews' careful tone when he asked about her stress levels. The standard medical questions seemed laced with caution, as if he suspected the turmoil in her personal life. Jennifer forced a tight smile, urging him not to worry. But her heart pounded as she watched the ultrasound monitor reveal the faint flicker of her baby's heartbeat. The sight brought tears to her eyes. This was her child, her miracle, a life that deserved better than a broken home, mired in betrayal. Leaving the hospital, Jennifer's phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. "We need to talk. I'll be home by 6. Her stomach twisted. The phrase "we need to talk" loomed like a death knell over her fragile hopes. Sure enough, at 6 p.m., sharp, Andrew strolled into the penthouse living room, dropping a manila envelope on the coffee table. Without preamble, he spoke in his carefully measured tone. "Sign these. We'll settle financial terms. You'll be well taken care of." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "Andrew, I'm pregnant with your child," she said, voice trembling with desperation. "Why would you do this now? How can you be so callous?" He glanced away, a fleeting hint of guilt crossing his face. Then, steeling himself, he replied, "It's for the best. We're not compatible anymore, Jennifer. I don't want you to suffer in a loveless marriage. I'll ensure our child is provided for." Before she could even process his words, Andrew turned and left the room, leaving the envelope behind like a toxic parting gift. With shaking hands, Jennifer picked it up and found pages upon pages of legal jargon. The final page demanded her signature, effectively severing her relationship with Andrew Wellington and the life she had fought so hard to build. For hours, Jennifer sat immobilized, the papers on her lap. Memories flashed through her mind, the day Andrew proposed on that yacht under the fireworks, how he had sworn to love and cherish her. Now, all she had left were broken promises and an unborn child whose father was already walking away. That night, she dreamed about a dark ocean. She was alone on a tiny raft, storm clouds overhead, trying to shield her unborn baby from the howling winds. Andrew's voice echoed from somewhere far away, urging her to sign on the dotted line. She woke up in a cold sweat, tears streaming down her face. Her phone buzzed with another text, this time from Daniel Harrington, Andrew's longtime friend, who had always shown concern for Jennifer. "I heard something troubling. Are you okay?" Jennifer debated, responding. Ultimately, she couldn't face the pity or the questions. She left it unanswered, uncertain of who was truly in her corner anymore. The cruel reality was sinking in. Andrew Wellington, once her knight in shining armor, was now her chief adversary. 2 days later, Andrew insisted they have a formal meeting at Harriet Caldwell's office. Jennifer arrived, shoulders tense, heart fluttering with dread. Harriet, a stern woman with iron-grey hair pulled into a tight bun, greeted Jennifer with frosty politeness. Andrew was already there, seated in a plush leather chair, expression unreadable. Harriet slid another set of papers across the mahogany desk. "Miss S. Wellington," she began, "we can expedite this process, but we need your cooperation." Jennifer's voice quivered. "I can't do this right now. She hesitated, tears threatening to spill. "I'm pregnant. We're supposed to be a family." Harriet's mouth pressed into a thin line. "We understand, Miss S. Wellington. However, Mr. Wellington is committed to ensuring you receive substantial support. You won't be financially compromised. Money, always money." The cold efficiency with which Andrew and his lawyer regarded her heartbreak was staggering. Jennifer glanced at Andrew, hoping for a flicker of kindness, but his gaze remained distant. She stood abruptly, pressing a hand to her stomach. "I can't do this," she whispered, her voice breaking. Then she fled, tears streaming down her cheeks. In the aftermath, Jennifer sought refuge at her mother's home upstate. Maria Collins welcomed her daughter with open arms, horrified by Andrew's actions. While the gentle hum of the bakery downstairs reminded Jennifer of simpler times, her mind never truly escaped the swirling chaos waiting back in Manhattan. She confided in her mother over tea in the cozy living room. "He wants to tear our family apart before it's even begun," Jennifer sobbed. "I just don't understand how someone can change so drastically." Maria patted her daughter's hand. "He's always been ambitious, honey. I remember the first time he came here, how restless he looked, checking his watch, sizing up our little bakery like it was beneath him. But I never thought he'd be so cruel." They talked through the afternoon, trying to weigh Jennifer's options. Maria insisted that Jennifer should stand up to Andrew, prove the marriage was worth saving. Yet in Jennifer's heart, doubt festered. She couldn't win the affection of a man who'd already given his heart, and possibly his soul, to another woman. That evening, Jennifer received a phone call from Daniel Harrington, who had been Andrew's best friend since college. She decided to pick up this time, curiosity and desperation overriding her fear of pity. "Jennifer," Daniel began, his voice laced with concern, "I just heard about the divorce. I wanted you to know I'm here if you need anything." Against her better judgment, Jennifer decided to share at least part of her turmoil. In halting sentences, she told Daniel about the pregnancy, the betrayal, and the divorce papers. Daniel sighed heavily. "I suspected something was off with Andrew lately. He's been acting strange, especially since he started meeting up with Isabella Moretti more frequently. I tried to warn him not to ruin what he has with you, but he wouldn't listen. Jennifer's voice caught in her throat. It hurts more than I can explain. I never imagined we'd end up here. Let me help, Daniel said softly. Andrew trusts me, and I still have some influence over him. Maybe I can talk sense into him. Jennifer hung up, torn between relief and skepticism. She knew Andrew valued Daniel's opinion, but she also recognized Andrew was fully enchanted by Isabella. A last-ditch effort might be too little, too late. Days later, Daniel invited Jennifer to a lunch in Manhattan to discuss potential strategies. They met at a quiet bistro, far from the usual paparazzi-laden hotspots that Andrew frequented. Daniel, with his warm brown eyes and gentle demeanor, looked genuinely pained by Jennifer's distress. She laid out everything: her heartbreak, her fear for the baby, her confusion over how Andrew could flip like a switch. Daniel listened intently, then confessed something that chilled Jennifer to the bone. Andrew's father, the late Mark Wellington, arranged a complex trust fund that grants Andrew full control of the family fortune, but it comes with certain clauses. One of them states that if Andrew divorces without producing a legitimate heir, his share reverts partly to philanthropic trusts, specifically funds managed by Warren Buffett's philanthropic circle. I discovered references to this while working with Andrew on a property deal last year. My guess is, if Andrew divorces you before the baby is born, he thinks he can circumvent that clause by claiming the marriage was untenable. You and the baby would be cut out of certain entitlements unless you sign a mutual agreement. Jennifer reeled. You're saying he's divorcing me partly to protect his fortune from his own child? Daniel shook his head. Not exactly, but it's twisted. He might be trying to renegotiate terms behind the scenes. Isabella also has her eyes on his money. I've overheard her persuading him to secure everything before the baby arrives. She's manipulative, Jennifer. She's pushing for control. A spark of anger flared in Jennifer's eyes. Andrew's betrayal now felt even more sinister. It wasn't just about love lost, it was about financial power and a mistress eager to sink her claws into the Wellington empire. Jennifer realized in that moment that she needed to fight not just for her own dignity, but for her unborn child's future. Back at the Wellington penthouse, Andrew was meticulously planning a grand soiree, an elite charity gala underwritten by the Family Foundation. The event would be the perfect stage to introduce the world to the next phase of his life, or so he believed. Isabella Moretti, the rumored mistress, had returned from Europe and was already making waves among New York's upper crust. Her appearance at the gala would undoubtedly cause a stir. Jennifer learned about this event through a society column, ironically penned by Harriet Samuels in the Palm Beach Post, who mentioned Andrew Wellington and his close friend Isabella Moretti were hosting a major charity auction. The mention of Isabella in the same breath as Andrew's philanthropic endeavors felt like a slap to the face. Jennifer recognized Isabella's infiltration was swift and merciless. She was asserting her presence on Andrew's arm publicly, effectively pushing Jennifer into the shadows. While Andrew finalized the gala's guest list, Jennifer grew determined to attend uninvited if she had to. If Andrew wanted to flaunt Isabella in public, Jennifer would not be cowering at her mother's bakery. She wanted Andrew to see her, to remember she was no pushover, that she refused to vanish quietly. The night of the gala arrived. Jennifer chose a form-fitting, floor-length gown in emerald green that subtly accentuated her pregnant figure. She styled her hair in soft waves, applied a bold red lipstick, and carried herself with a calm poise she hardly felt inside. Paparazzi lined the plush carpet leading into the grand ballroom. Flashes exploded in quick succession as she emerged from a black sedan, her face resolute. Inside, the room was a spectacle of opulent chandeliers dripping with crystals, tables adorned with fresh orchids, and waiters circulating with trays of champagne. Jennifer spotted Andrew almost immediately, standing by the stage with Isabella by his side. Isabella was everything the rumors promised: tall, model-like, in a shimmering silver gown that clung to her every curve. Her dark hair spilled seductively over one shoulder, and her fingers were entwined with Andrew's in a manner far too intimate for a business associate. The moment Andrew's eyes locked on Jennifer, a flicker of surprise, then annoyance, crossed his features. He whispered something to Isabella, who turned and followed his gaze. A smirk curved Isabella's red lips, as if mocking Jennifer's presence. Summoning every ounce of composure, Jennifer approached them. "Andrew," she said politely, her voice only trembling slightly. "I didn't realize our charity events were invite-only these days." Andrew swallowed, likely thrown off by Jennifer's boldness. "Jennifer, this is not the place." "I'm in the middle of," Isabella cut in, extending a manicured hand. "Isabella Moretti. Lovely to meet you, Jennifer. I've heard so much about you." Jennifer forced a polite smile. "I'm sure you have." Tension crackled in the air. Guests in the vicinity sensed the awkwardness. Glancing curiously at the trio, Andrew cleared his throat and placed a hand on Isabella's back as though staking his claim. "We're here for an important cause tonight. Let's not make a scene." Without warning, Jennifer's voice rose, not quite loud enough to cause a disruption, but enough to catch Andrew off guard. "Is that what you told our unborn child? That it's not the place for them either?" Andrew's jaw tightened. Isabella's eyes sparkled with triumph, as though Jennifer's raw emotion was exactly the reaction she wanted. Before more words could be exchanged, Daniel Harrington sidled up to them, taking Jennifer gently by the elbow. "Jennifer, let's step outside for a moment." She allowed herself to be guided out onto the terrace, where the city skyline glittered under the night sky. She took deep, shaky breaths, tears threatening to spill over. "I couldn't let him publicly flaunt her without reminding him he still has responsibilities," she murmured. Daniel nodded. "I understand. But trust me, humiliating him in public isn't going to solve anything. He's too proud. He'll dig in harder." As they stood there, Harriet Samuels, the Society columnist, emerged, camera in hand. She'd caught wind of the friction. Instinctively, Daniel maneuvered to shield Jennifer from any prying questions. "No comment, Harriet," he insisted, leading Jennifer away before she became the night's gossip headline. The following morning, Jennifer woke up to a flurry of social media posts and tabloid headlines about the awkward triangle at the Wellington Gala. While Andrew's PR team scrambled to spin the story, Jennifer realized the public now had a taste of the drama. The facade of the perfect Wellington marriage was crumbling fast. An urgent message blinked on Jennifer's phone from Harriet Caldwell's office, demanding that she finalize the divorce settlement or face an aggressive legal approach. Jennifer read the message with cold dread. Andrew was done pretending to care for her feelings. He wanted her out of the picture. After hours of contemplation, Jennifer decided to seek her own legal counsel. She contacted a recommended attorney, Margaret Healy, who specialized in high-profile family disputes. In a sunlit conference room overlooking Central Park, Jennifer recounted her story: her marriage to Andrew, the discovery of his affair, the pregnancy, and the trust fund clauses that Daniel had revealed. Margaret took meticulous notes, her hazel eyes narrowing. "You have more power here than you realize," she said, tapping a pen against her notebook. "If you can prove Andrew is divorcing you in bad faith, especially under pressure from Isabella, and that financial motivations play a role in disclaiming paternity or cutting you out, you can fight for a substantial settlement. More importantly, you can secure a future for your child." Jennifer exhaled a shaky breath. "I don't want a drawn-out court battle. I just want what's fair for the baby." Margaret's expression softened. "I understand. However, From what you've shared, Andrew is less likely to respond to emotional pleas. He's built a fortress around his empire. We need to be strategic. Within the next week, Jennifer signed a retainer with Margaret. They filed motions to contest the initial divorce papers, demanding more favorable terms and stating the unborn child's interests. The legal war had officially begun. While the lawyers dueled in offices and courtrooms, Jennifer found herself grappling with a surge of mixed emotions: love, anger, betrayal, fear. Nights blurred into restless dreams, and even daily tasks felt like navigating a fog. The baby's gentle kicks reminded her that life persisted within her, a quiet beacon of hope in this storm. During one of her sleepless nights, Jennifer recalled how she had first caught a glimpse of Andrew's complexity. It was at a dinner party early in their relationship, when Mark Wellington, the patriarch, was still alive. Over cigars and brandy, Mark boasted about the Wellington legacy, regaling guests with tales of power and wealth. Jennifer had noticed Andrew's jaw clench, the way his eyes flashed resentment whenever his father bragged about controlling the family's direction. She realized now that Andrew's ruthless streak might be inherited. Mark had molded Andrew to protect the family fortune at all costs. At times, Jennifer couldn't help but wonder if Andrew had ever truly loved her, or if she had simply been a charming addition to his public image. Perhaps, in the early days, he'd been attracted to her sincerity, her warmth, and her refusal to be impressed by his money. But ambition and greed had a way of corroding even the purest feelings. One afternoon, seeking a distraction, Jennifer flipped through the social pages. She paused on an old article discussing Andrew's philanthropic partnership with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, praising his youth and vision. Photographs showed Andrew shaking hands with the billionaires at a foundation dinner. The same piece mentioned Mark Wellington's philanthropic trusts, those that might revert to charity if Andrew's marriage didn't produce an heir. There it was, a real, tangible hint that the Wellington Empire was always overshadowed by carefully orchestrated legalities. Feeling an odd urge to verify the details, Jennifer scheduled a meeting with Daniel Harrington, who had access to many of the Wellington archives. She wanted clarity about the trust fund's stipulations, everything her father-in-law had orchestrated from beyond the grave. They met in Daniel's downtown office, quiet on a late Friday afternoon. Tall windows overlooked the bustling city streets. "I appreciate you coming," Jennifer began. "I need to be absolutely certain about these legal details that might affect my child." Daniel nodded and produced a couple of folders. "I looked into the Mark Wellington Trust. It's complicated, but one thing stands out. If Andrew has a legitimate heir, that child is entitled to a certain portion of the estate, managed in trust until adulthood. If Andrew divorces you before the child is born, he might try to contest paternity or negotiate the trust's disbursement. That's likely why Harriet Caldwell is pressing so hard for a swift divorce. They want to avoid additional claims." Jennifer's anger simmered. He's trying to pretend the child isn't his so he can protect his money. That's deplorable. Daniel's gaze softened. "I don't think he'll outright deny paternity if you force the issue. He might, however, try to manipulate you into a settlement that's less than what the child is legally entitled to." Jennifer swallowed hard, hating that she had to think of her unborn baby in terms of financial battles. But Andrew had forced her hand. Meanwhile, Isabella Moretti was reveling in her role as Andrew's new muse. She moved into a lavish apartment just blocks from Andrew's penthouse. The tabloids were rife with speculation about their burgeoning romance, especially after they were spotted vacationing in street Barts together. Behind the scenes, however, Andrew's business interests were taking a hit. Rumors of his messy personal life made investors skittish and potential partners worried about Andrew's judgment. Some of his board members at Wellington Ventures questioned his decision-making, while others quietly distanced themselves, not wanting to be caught in the crossfire of a scandal. One evening, Andrew invited Isabella to a private dinner in the penthouse. The day had been rough. His phone buzzed non-stop with calls from Harriet about the divorce proceedings. Documents from Margaret Healy indicated that Jennifer was pushing for spousal support, a robust trust for the child, and a share of the Wellington assets that rivaled what Mark Wellington's trust would have mandated anyway. If Andrew refused, they'd see him in court. Isabella sipped her wine, her dark eyes dancing with intrigue. "Darling, you can't let that woman run circles around you. Didn't you mention you wanted to propose to me once this is over? How can we move forward with a costly legal battle weighing us down?" Andrew pinched the bridge of his nose. "You don't think I know that? I'm working on it. But Jennifer has a top-notch attorney." Isabella's smile was cunning. "We can't have her winning public sympathy, especially not with that baby on the way. Let your lawyers handle the negotiations. We focus on us, on our future." She leaned in, resting a hand on Andrew's thigh. "Once the baby's born, you'll pay child support, but that doesn't mean she has to get half the kingdom." Andrew stared at his wineglass. "I never wanted it to escalate like this. Things were supposed to be smooth and private." Isabella laughed softly, the sound chilling. "We can't always dictate how these things play out, but we can make sure we come out on top." Andrew forced a tight smile, but inside, unease roiled. He thought back to a conversation he once had with Jennifer early in their marriage about wanting a stable family, a legacy built on something more than money. Now, that ideal felt like a foreign dream. He had chosen ambition, lust, and greed. There was no turning back. Weeks blurred with court filings, depositions, and tense negotiations. Jennifer continued living with her mother in upstate New York, finding moments of solace in the bakery. Kneading dough became a meditation, a reminder that life could still be simple and wholesome. Each passing day, her baby bump grew more visible, fueling her resolve to persevere. One afternoon, while helping her mother decorate a wedding cake, Jennifer felt a sharp pang in her abdomen, followed by dizziness. Alarmed, Maria rushed her to the local clinic, where Dr. Robert Green, a longtime family friend, performed a checkup. After an ultrasound and some tests, he looked at Jennifer seriously. "You're under an incredible amount of stress, and it's affecting your blood pressure. You need rest and minimal anxiety, especially in your second trimester. If this continues, you risk complications." Jennifer nodded, tears brimming. "I'm trying, Dr. Green, but everything in my life is spiraling." Maria placed a comforting hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Your health and the baby come first. We'll find a way to reduce the stress." That evening, Jennifer called Margaret Healy, telling her about the doctor's recommendation. Margaret immediately filed motions for a temporary restraining order against excessive legal harassment, requesting that Andrew's team refrain from unnecessary contact and intimidation. It was a small victory, giving Jennifer a chance to breathe. Ironically, with the legal hounds muzzled, at least temporarily, Andrew found himself in an awkward position. Isabella grew impatient, demanding updates about the divorce's progress and pushing Andrew for a marriage proposal. Andrew promised her it was only a matter of time, but the more pressure Isabella applied, the more Andrew felt the walls closing in. As autumn leaves began to fade, Andrew received notice that Jennifer was due in court to finalize a few details regarding financial disclosures. Reluctantly, he flew upstate, deciding to check on her under the guise of facilitating legal documents. Upon arrival, he stepped into the bakery's comforting aroma of freshly baked bread, so out of place compared to the Manhattan high-rises and penthouse boardrooms. He found Jennifer behind the counter, gently wiping flour from her hands. Their eyes met across the small, homey space. For the first time in months, Andrew hesitated, as if grappling with regret. Up close, Jennifer's pregnancy was undeniable, her face softer, her belly rounded. She looked exhausted yet radiant, a testament to the new life inside her. "What do you want, Andrew?" she asked quietly, refusing to display any vulnerability. Andrew tried to muster indifference, but his voice wavered. "I'm here for the hearing tomorrow. Harriet Caldwell asked me to sign some documents." He paused, then awkwardly added, "You look, well." A bitter laugh escaped Jennifer's lips. "I'm trying to be well, despite everything." Silence stretched between them. The memory of love once shared lingered in the air, mingling with the sweet scent of cinnamon rolls. Andrew's gaze dropped to Jennifer's stomach. "How is the baby?" he asked, voice hushed. Jennifer studied him. It might have been the first time he'd shown a hint of genuine concern since she announced her pregnancy. "The baby is fine, thanks to me. I'm doing everything I can to ensure that remains true." Andrew nodded, guilt flickering across his features. But before he could form another word, Maria emerged from the back, eyes narrowing at the sight of her son-in-law. She offered no greeting, only a curt nod. Andrew took it as a sign that his welcome was limited. "I'll see you in court," he murmured, turning to leave. Jennifer stood still, heart pounding. She realized how Andrew's momentary glimpse of concern didn't erase the betrayal, nor did it solve the looming battle over their child's future. The next day, the small-town courthouse was abuzz. Reporters had descended, keen to capture every nuance of the high-profile couple's drama. Margaret Healy and Harriet Caldwell exchanged chilly pleasantries outside the courtroom, their respective clients standing on opposite sides. Inside, the judge reviewed the motions. Jennifer found herself trembling under the courthouse's fluorescent lighting. She was asked to testify about her financial situation, her efforts to support the unborn child, and her understanding of Andrew's responsibilities. Harriet Caldwell peppered her with pointed questions, insinuating that she was trying to trap Andrew for financial gain. Margaret rose swiftly in objection. "Miss S. Wellington is merely requesting the support and recognition owed by law for her unborn child. Mr. Wellington's mistress is publicly flaunting their relationship, and the abruptness of these divorce proceedings strongly suggests an intent to deprive Miss S. Wellington of her rightful share." The judge, a stern-faced woman, rapped her gavel lightly. "I've heard enough on this matter for today. Given Miss S. Wellington's medical concerns, I'm inclined to grant a protective order limiting the frequency of direct legal confrontations until after the baby is born. Additionally, Mr. Wellington will be responsible for medical expenses related to the pregnancy. We will reconvene for further negotiations in a month." With that, the session concluded. Jennifer sighed in relief, though the weight of uncertainty remained. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Andrew hurried into a sleek black car, Isabella at his side, while Jennifer watched from the steps, fighting back tears. The final confrontation was still pending, and the pressure was rising. In a move that stunned even the tabloids, Andrew proposed to Isabella Moretti during a grand party at the Waldorf Astoria the following week. The spectacle was as ostentatious as one might expect. A 10-carat diamond ring, a string quartet, champagne flutes brimming with vintage Dom Perignon. Flashy images of Isabella's triumphant smile, ring glittering under the chandelier, dominated the next morning's headlines. Jennifer watched the coverage from her bedroom, tears coursing silently down her cheeks. There it was, the father of her child, publicly pledging himself to another woman, effectively erasing Jennifer from his life as though she were a trivial footnote. Anger bubbled in her chest, but overshadowing it was a deep sorrow. She mourned not just her shattered marriage, but the illusions she once cherished a future built on love and partnership. When she could compose herself, she called Daniel. His voice sounded weary. "I'm sorry, Jennifer. He's letting Isabella dictate his life now." Jennifer took a shaky breath. "I won't let them destroy mine. I'm going to protect my baby, and I'll do whatever it takes." Behind the scenes, Isabella reveled in her new fiancé status. She made appearances on society talk shows, sashayed down red carpets on Andrew's arm, and dropped hints about a lavish wedding in Lake Como. Yet Andrew's business woes grew deeper. Several major investors, wary of personal scandals, withdrew or froze their capital commitments. Even within the Wellington family trust, murmurs arose about Andrew's judgment, questioning if he was tarnishing a once-respected brand. Isabella consoled Andrew with empty platitudes. "They'll come around. Money follows success, and will generate success as soon as this divorce is settled. Besides, we can rebrand, start fresh." But Andrew began noticing subtle, warning signs, messages on Isabella's phone from unknown names, glimpses of suspicious receipts for high-end purchases in her name that he hadn't approved. When he questioned her, Isabella brushed it off with a tinkling laugh. "A girl needs her indulgences, darling. Let's not bicker over petty details." Late one night, Andrew awakened to find Isabella talking in hushed whispers on her phone. The conversation ended abruptly when she realized he was listening. A small seed of doubt took root in Andrew's mind. He had risked everything for this woman. Had he miscalculated her loyalty? In the final weeks of Jennifer's pregnancy, she encountered increasing discomfort and bouts of fatigue. Maria insisted that Jennifer avoid any stress, but the legal proceedings had reached another critical juncture. Andrew and Jennifer were scheduled for a mediation session, their last attempt to settle before a full-blown trial. The mediators, assigned by the court, urged compromise. Margaret Healy laid out Jennifer's demands: a guaranteed trust for the child, full coverage of all medical and education expenses, and a reasonable spousal support package. Andrew, seated across the table, fidgeted with his pen. Isabella's presence hovered in the corridor like a malevolent spectre, even though she wasn't allowed inside the mediation room. Andrew's lawyer, Harriet, offered a counter-proposal, a lump sum payment and minimal child support, contingent on Jennifer signing a non-disclosure agreement about the Wellington family affairs. The mediator frowned, sensing the imbalance. "Mr. Wellington, you understand that your unborn child is entitled to more than a token gesture." Andrew's eyes flickered with frustration. "She's trying to take advantage of my name," he said, his voice wavering with the same rehearsed indignation Harriet had used in court. But the words rang hollow. He knew better than anyone how the trust's clauses worked, and how he was attempting to secure his empire for Isabella. Jennifer's calm facade crumbled. She stood, placing a protective hand over her belly. "I won't let you reduce our baby to a line item on a balance sheet." Andrew averted his gaze, saying nothing. In that moment, Jennifer realized that the man she'd once loved was trapped by pride and manipulation. He was unwilling to break free, even if it meant sacrificing his integrity. Unable to reach an agreement, the mediator declared the session at an impasse. They'd have to proceed to court after the child's birth, as the judge had previously ruled that Jennifer's health was paramount. Life has a way of refusing to wait for the perfect moment. Late one evening, Jennifer was rushed to the hospital with contractions. She was nearly a month early, her nerves frayed, her body exhausted from the stress. Maria held her hand through the labor, tears of worry in her eyes. After an arduous delivery, Jennifer welcomed a baby boy into the world, Lucas Wellington Collins. The moment she held him, her heart flooded with a love so fierce it eclipsed every fear, every betrayal. His tiny fingers wrapped around hers, reassuring her that no matter how bleak things seemed, they had each other. Word of the birth reached Andrew via Daniel. For a moment, Andrew felt his chest constrict with emotions he couldn't name: regret, longing, maybe even love. But Isabella insisted. "She'll use this baby to bleed you dry, Andrew." Torn and conflicted, Andrew arrived at the hospital the next day, flowers in hand, faced with the reality of fatherhood. He found Jennifer cradling Lucas in a quiet room, dim lights casting soft shadows. Something in Andrew's expression shifted as he saw the baby. He reached out, gently brushing the infant's cheek with the back of his hand. Lucas stirred, blinking up at this stranger. Tears blurred Andrew's vision. He'd never felt so vulnerable. But Isabella's voice echoed in his mind, reminding him of the divorce, the legal fights, the future he was building with her. Abruptly, he pulled away, as though remembering his role. Jennifer watched, tears in her eyes. She didn't speak, sensing the battle raging inside him. For one fleeting moment, she saw the Andrew she fell in love with, the one who once promised her the world. Then he turned and left the room, as if to escape the consequences of his own choices. As Jennifer recovered, a storm brewed in Andrew's life. He discovered that Isabella had been siphoning funds from various business accounts into a private offshore holding. Suspicious invoices and shady transactions revealed she'd been meticulously funneling money away, presumably to secure her own future. The revelation cut Andrew to the core. He'd betrayed Jennifer for this woman, only to be used as a stepping stone in Isabella's quest for wealth. Desperate to salvage his finances and reputation, Andrew confronted Isabella in their penthouse one stormy evening. Rain lashed the windows as thunder shook the building. "You've been stealing from me," he accused, voice trembling with fury and hurt. "Why?" Isabella didn't even bother denying it. She rolled her eyes, leaning casually against the kitchen island. "Call it an insurance policy, dear. You made grand promises about a future together, but we both know money is the real power here. Don't pretend you're any different." Andrew clenched his fists, the weight of his own hypocrisy pressing down on him. He had chosen greed and ambition over loyalty. Now he was reaping the results. "We're done," he spat, grabbing his coat. "Get out, or I'll call the authorities." Isabella merely smirked, slipping a diamond ring off her finger and setting it on the counter. "Keep the ring, keep your empire. I have what I need." She walked out into the night, leaving Andrew to realize that the empire he'd fought so hard to protect now felt like a hollow shell. In the days that followed, Andrew's life became a whirlwind of damage control. He pursued legal action against Isabella, locked down the compromised accounts, and faced the scorn of colleagues who had warned him about letting personal drama interfere with business. The tabloids delighted in the fallout. Wellington's Mistress flees with fortune screamed headlines. Amid the chaos, Andrew found himself thinking about Lucas. He reached out to Jennifer, requesting permission to visit their son. Reluctantly, Jennifer agreed, on the condition that Andrew came alone with no lawyers in tow. When Andrew arrived at the Collins home, the atmosphere felt tense, but less hostile than before. Maria, watching from a distance, offered a polite nod, though it was clear she harbored deep resentment. Jennifer invited Andrew into the nursery, where Lucas lay in a crib decorated with soft blues and whites. The baby stirred, and Andrew gently lifted him, heart thudding in his chest. The tiny weight of Lucas in his arms felt monumental. Glancing up, Andrew noticed tears shimmering in Jennifer's eyes. She stood quietly, arms crossed, protective. He knew he didn't deserve her forgiveness or even a second chance. But the love he felt for his son was undeniable, and for the first time, Andrew realized how severely he had damaged everything that truly mattered. Jennifer's voice was soft when she finally spoke. "He's healthy, strong. The doctor said he'll catch up quickly, even though he was early." Andrew nodded, rocking Lucas slowly. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice cracking, "for everything." Tears rolled down Jennifer's cheeks, but she didn't reply. The apology was so small, so late, it could hardly mend the months of betrayal and anguish. Still, Andrew's willingness to show vulnerability in front of his son was a start, maybe a fragile step, toward redemption. Over the next weeks, Andrew made an effort to be present for Lucas, offering financial support, checking on him regularly, even volunteering to babysit. He hired a team of nannies and child development specialists, but Jennifer remained cautious, not wanting Lucas to be used as a pawn in Andrew's quest to repair his public image. They continued to have tense phone calls about the final divorce settlement, but both agreed Lucas deserved the best possible environment. One afternoon, Andrew arrived unannounced with a stuffed bear larger than the crib. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. "He's not old enough to appreciate that," she remarked, though a hint of amusement glinted in her eyes. Andrew rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. "I realize that. I guess. I just want him to have what I never did." Jennifer frowned, confused. "You had everything money could buy, everything except two parents who genuinely loved each other," Andrew admitted. "My father was always away, handling business, and my mother, she indulged her own social life. I barely saw them together unless it was a photo op." For a moment, sympathy welled up in Jennifer. She placed the oversized bear aside. "Andrew, money can't erase the damage you've done. But if you truly want to be a father, to be in Lucas's life, you need to step up consistently and do the right thing. No more manipulations." Andrew nodded, his expression earnest. "I will." Eventually, the postponed court date arrived, set to finalize custody, child support, and the divorce terms. Jennifer was adamant that while she didn't trust Andrew romantically, she would allow co-parenting if it was in Lucas's best interest. Margaret Healy strategized that a fair settlement could be reached if Andrew accepted responsibility without dragging Jennifer into further legal warfare. Andrew, chastened by Isabella's betrayal and desperate to salvage whatever was left of his integrity, approached Harriet Caldwell with instructions to offer generous concessions to Jennifer. Harriet, though initially taken aback, complied. In a dramatic twist, Andrew took the stand during the hearing and confessed, under oath, that his affair and financial motivations played a significant role in filing for divorce. He admitted to orchestrating a scenario where Jennifer was pressured to sign the papers, acknowledging that his actions were cruel and self-serving. Jennifer listened, tears in her eyes, as Andrew publicly owned up to his wrongdoing. While it didn't erase her pain, his confession paved the way for a more compassionate settlement. The judge commended both sides for finally reaching a reasonable agreement, full shared custody, a substantial trust for Lucas, and a fair spousal support arrangement that allowed Jennifer to rebuild her life independently. In the hallway after court, Andrew approached Jennifer hesitantly. She studied him for a moment, remembering the heartbreak, the betrayal, and the man she once loved. "Thank you," she said softly, "for telling the truth." He sighed, the weight of months of deceit lifting from his shoulders. "I owed you that much." With the divorce officially granted, Jennifer began a new chapter. She moved into a modest but comfortable apartment in a family-friendly neighborhood, using part of the settlement to secure a stable future for Lucas. She also expanded her mother's bakery business, investing in modern equipment and marketing to attract a broader customer base. The simple life she always cherished started to blossom again, this time enriched by the bond she shared with her son. Andrew, on the other hand, worked tirelessly to repair his fractured reputation and stabilize Wellington Ventures. He took a step back from the limelight, focusing more on responsible leadership. Occasionally, he reflected on how he had nearly lost himself in pursuit of a mistress's approval, only to discover she was using him all along. It was a painful lesson, but one that reshaped his priorities. He and Jennifer maintained a cordial relationship for Lucas's sake. Weekend visits and shared holidays became opportunities to foster a sense of family for their son. Each time Andrew saw Lucas giggle or take a tentative step, he felt a pang of regret that he hadn't chosen fatherhood over ambition from the beginning. Months passed, each day a little brighter than the last. Lucas reached milestones: his first smile, first crawl, first babbling words. Jennifer relished motherhood, discovering a quiet strength she never knew she possessed. Supportive friends, new business ventures, and the unwavering love of her mother helped her heal from Andrew's betrayal. Then, on a warm spring afternoon, Andrew asked if he could take Lucas to the park, hoping to spend quality time outdoors. Jennifer agreed, cautiously optimistic. Watching from a park bench, she saw Andrew kneel in the grass, gently guiding Lucas's tiny steps. The sun filtered through the trees, illuminating the scene like a painting. For a fleeting moment, Jennifer felt a sense of bittersweet contentment. Their marriage was over, but something sacred, a shared love for Lucas, remained. When Andrew returned, Lucas giggling happily in his arms, he offered Jennifer a rare, genuine smile. "He's growing so fast," Andrew murmured, eyes filled with wonder. "Thank you for letting me be a part of this." She nodded, noticing that while the regret in his expression remained, it was tempered by sincere affection for their child. Life had shattered their union, but it had also woven them together in a new way. And so ends this tumultuous chapter of betrayal, heartbreak, and redemption, an extraordinary reminder that even in life's darkest hours, hope can still flicker. Andrew Wellington, once blinded by power and seduced by greed, ultimately faced the staggering price of his choices. Jennifer Collins, fortified by unwavering determination and the love of those who stood by her, proved that one can rise above ruin and protect what truly matters. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. If you found yourself captivated by Jennifer's resilience, Andrew's downfall, and the ultimate triumph of love for their son, Lucas, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Share this story with friends who might need inspiration in their own struggles. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real-life drama fiction that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Together, let's continue exploring tales that remind us no storm lasts forever.